Okay, so welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to look at a project called tree_hello_geni Docker model. And basically what it is it's a application that uses a Docker model plus a web interface. So I'm going to kind of walk you through this kind of quite quickly, but in the notes themselves we have the usual commands that we basically need for Mac. So I'm running everything on Mac. And this is probably the first time we're actually going to kind of look at Docker model. So Docker model, if you go into actually Docker itself, in Docker desktop, you'll sort of see that over here in models, I can go in here and I actually have one model downloaded. And this is the model that the actual sample uses. But long story short is I can actually kind of go into that model and I can, make requests to that model. I can do things within the model, I can interact with the model, and I can do it all from the command line itself here. So what I can do is I can clear this here for 1 second. So let's just kind of clear this for 1 second. Let's kind of go into where we sort of say, okay, so we pull down the model. Now, so I've already pulled down the actual Docker model that we're going to use for this, this sample. Okay, so the interface, the web user interface is actually going to use this model. So I've pulled this model down. And then if I kind of do Docker model list here, so if I do Docker model list here, you can sort of see that, it's this size, it was created 6 months ago, it's got this model ID, it's got this architecture of Llama, and it's got kind of different characteristics. Now, if I want to interact with the model from the CLI, which is the user interface here, I can basically sort of say, okay, Docker model run, and it opens like an interactive chat mode. And here I can sort of say, testing, and the model will probably run quite quickly. It looks like you're kind of testing to see if I'm working properly. That's completely fine, right? So the model itself is downloaded, and I can sort of see, okay, so the chat session has ended now, but the model itself is actually downloaded and it's interacting correctly. Okay, so we kind of go in towards down here. If I really wanted to kind of remove that model and update it with another model, I could also do that, because if you go back to your Docker desktop here, you'll sort of see, there's different models that you can actually kind of bring down. There's different kind of versions of this Llama. So this is based on the Llama 3.2. So up to this Llama 3.2. And then there's different kind of versions that you can basically pull down from here. So the one that we're using is the Q8_0, which is part of this application here. So this is the Git repo. So, I didn't write this repo, so I don't take, no responsibility for this repo. But if you kind of go to this repo, you'll sort of see it's a very simple GenAA application to try Docker model runner, okay? So what it does is, it'll have like a Go, Node, Python, and Rust, 4 different types of applications involved in running and testing. The one I always kind of go for is Node or Python. I just kind of prefer those kind of two. But if you're more inclined to go with Go or Rust, you can use one of those. But you can sort of see there's an environment file here, there's a git ignore, there's a Docker file which will basically build up your images. Then there's a Docker compose which will basically run out of this, and then there's a run.sh. So you basically have all the kind of files in as part of this repo. So if I kind of go back to my notes here, what I've kind of done is I've just kind of gone to my downloads, and I've created a new folder to store this. I've cloned the repo. I've changed into the Hello Geni, because that's actually the name of the actual folder here, Hello Geni. So I've changed into that folder here. One thing you actually have to make sure is that your environment file looks like this. So if I go back to my command line here and I just do kind of /a, you can actually sort of see there's an actual environment file here, right? So if I cat my environment file here, and again it's a dot in front of it, so it means it's a hidden file in Linux. So you have to use your A to see the hidden files. But if I do that, you can sort of see that this hidden file has some kind of configurations here. It kind of goes up to this point here, and it has some configurations here, and it says okay, so the LLM base is this, so this is the one that you need for Docker desktop, and this is the configuration for the model to use. So this is the model. So if I wanted to use different version of where I was kind of showing you a few minutes ago, all I'd actually have to do is update this environment file to use that version, and then it'll pick up this model. So I'm going to run docker compose up, which I've probably done previously, but I'll kind of do it again. So I'll just kind of clear this for 1 second. Kind of cleared that, and it sort of says, okay, so everything is kind of running. So my containers are running. So if I kind of go back into my Docker desktop, I should see basically that, I have a project, which is _3. And then basically I sort of see, okay, I actually have kind of containers and they're all in a kind of running state here. Okay, so I could stop them if I really wanted to, but for right now, I'm not going to stop them. And finally, we have a run.sh file here. So if I kind of go here and run, okay, let's sort of see what kind of happens here. So it sort of says, okay, so it started to kind of, pulling the Docker model. It's using the cache model, which is good. So if you didn't already have it downloaded, which, in my case, I already had it, it's also running the Docker compose. So this is just a bash file. Basically, this is just a bash file to run a lot of the actual kind of commands themselves. And if you kind of come down here, you'll sort of see, okay, so there's, containers here that are basically built and running now. And I also sort of see this attaching to Go, Node, Python, and Rust. So what's actually happened here is the script has actually attached the model that we basically had downloaded. It's actually attached it over into these containers. So it's basically attached to the actual containers themselves. So if I now go to my Docker desktop, and I want to, as I sort of said, I'll kind of probably try the node, right? And the node is this one here. And I will bring over my tab here. So this says, hello, Gen AI in Node.js. Okay, so this is, again, the repository that we've kind of downloaded. So it says, hello, I'm your Gen assistant. How can I help you? So I'm going to sort of say, okay, so if I kind of put test here, it's thinking about it, okay? And it's giving me a response back. So what's actually happening here is right now I'm interacting using this user interface here from here, okay? So my Gen AI here, it's attached here. So my Docker model, which is here, I can interact with independently through the user interface, which I did. Now I want to actually have the UI, and now because I want the UI, I want to attach that model over to this UI. So it's basically going to look at the environment variable that I kind of showed you earlier, pick that environment variable up, and then attach it over to your file. So that's it actually running, right? So I could do anything, I could kind of interact anything now. Tell me what is Docker. Okay, so you can sort of see it's thinking about it, and this is the kind of famous prompt that we normally kind of give. Now it's it's never going to be lightning fast because it's quite a big kind of model in some ways. Like it's over, well, it's kind of around 1.3 gig. So it's never going to be kind of lightning fast, for a Mac. I mean, my Mac is a good kind of spec, but at the end of the day, I mean, they're not really meant for big models, and that's why a lot of people use like tiny lamb and that kind of sort of stuff to test. But right now you can sort of see, I mean, it's quick enough, right? So it's tell me, okay, so Docker is an open source containerized platform. But long story short is it basically has everything connected. Now, if I was to stop this, so if I was to kind of quit this here, and you sort of see it stopped now, okay, and I was kind of, okay, go back in here and sort of say, tell testing again, right? So it says, okay, sorry, I encountered an error because the actual connection between this web UI interface and my model has been interrupted, it's been disturbed, right? So again, I'd have to kind of, rerun my run command to get that back to working state, right? So if I kind of do that again, okay. So it'll kind of just come back and, it'll then just sort of say everything's kind of working back again. So testing, let's say they see if it's thinking, how may I assist you today? Okay, so it's back up and running. everything looks to be kind of working fine. So that's our number 3 that is here. So I'm going to close that for a second. So that here is our number 3 Hello Gen I with Docker model. Thank you.